Hi, Abba Mama. Welcome back to Season 2. I am Troy at Banana English. So glad you are here because today we are going to talk about passive verbs. Perhaps you have even heard the term passive verbs or passive voice, but do you know what those terms really mean? Do you know how they relate to active verbs and active voice? There is a simple way to find out whether a verb is passive or active. You only have to ask one question. Is the subject performing the action or receiving the action of the verb? If the subject performs the action, then you are reading or speaking in an active voice. If the subject is receiving the action of the verb, then you are reading or speaking in a passive voice. The passive voice is used to show interest in the person or object that experiences an action rather than the person or object that performs the action. In other words, the most important thing or person becomes the subject of the sentence. Let's look at this active sentence. The boss invited her to the party. If you want to focus on the person or thing affected by the action, you make the person or thing the subject of the sentence and use the passive voice. She was invited to the party by the boss. We also prefer to use the passive voice when we do not know who the agent is. So instead of saying, "I don't know who did it, but someone has let out my pet rabbit," I had the feeling that somebody was following me. It is better to say, "I don't know who did it, but my pet rabbit has been let out." I had the feeling that I was being followed. I'm going to give you some sentences, then I'm going to pause so that you can ask yourself whether the action is being performed by the subject, or if it is being received by the subject. Then you are going to answer either passive or active before I give you the answer. Are you ready? I ate a piece of chocolate cake. Did the subject perform the action or receive the action? That's right, this is an active voice. The librarian read the books to the students. Did the subject perform the action or receive the action? Good job. This is an active voice. The money was stolen. Did the subject perform the action or receive the action? Excellent. This is a passive voice. They are paid on Fridays. Did the subject perform the action or receive the action? That's right. This is a passive voice. The movie is being made in Hollywood. Did the subject perform the action or receive the action? Good job! This is a passive voice. I washed my car 3 weeks ago. Did the subject perform the action or receive the action? Excellent! This is an active voice. His hair was cut by a professional. Did the subject perform the action or receive the action? That's right, this is a passive voice. I will introduce you to my boss this week. Did the subject perform the action or receive the action? Good job, this is an active voice. It would have been fixed at the weekend. Did the subject perform the action or receive the action? Excellent, this is a passive voice. The national anthem is being sung by Jason this time. Did the subject perform the action or receive the action? That's right, this is a passive voice. I'm excited that you are working so hard to learn the difference between active and passive voice. Remember, active voice is also considered a normal voice, and passive voice is less common. In passive voice, the object of the active verb becomes the subject of the passive verb. Water is drunk by everybody. Mice are eaten by cats. Although the passive voice is less common than the active voice, there are several good reasons to use the passive voice. Let's look at how the passive voice sentence is structured. Subject, originally object, plus auxiliary verb, be verb, plus main verb, plus by, plus agent, originally subject. Let's look at some examples. I am employed by Apple. You will be woken up at 6 a.m. I will have been finished by then. We have been notified by the head office. You are being transferred next week. They will be paid next Wednesday. In the above examples, the auxiliary verb, be verb, can be conjugated for all persons and tenses. The main verb is invariable and must be spoken or written in the past participle. If there is an agent, originally subject, it is introduced with the word by. Now, I am going to challenge you. With your new knowledge, you should be pretty good at the differences between active and passive voice. I'm going to give you another 10 sentences. This time, I'm not going to give you the answers until the end. Check to see if your answers match mine. Ready? Dentists were assisted by dental hygienists. My spouse arrived by plane at 6:55 a.m. By pure coincidence, she came into the store when I happened to be there. We were bitten by mosquitoes at the cottage. My wallet was found on the street. The argument was rejected. The director studied the file and gave her comments. The committee assured me that no follow-up was necessary at the moment. The child was bitten by his friend at the daycare. Are you ready for the answers? Let's go through this one sentence at a time. Dentists were assisted by dental hygienists. This is a passive voice. In the passive voice, the subject is the receiver of the action. The dentists, subject, are receiving assistance from the hygienists. The dentists are not doing the assisting. My spouse arrived by plane at 6:55 a.m. This is an active voice. In the active voice, the subject is the doer of the action. It was the spouse, subject, who did the arriving. By pure coincidence, she came into the store when I happened to be there. This is an active voice. In the active voice, the subject is the doer of the action. It was she, subject, who did the action of entering the store. We were bitten by mosquitoes at the cottage. This is a passive voice. In the passive voice, the subject is the receiver of the action. The subject, we, received the bites. The mosquitoes did the action of biting. My wallet was found on the street. This is a passive voice. In the passive voice, the subject is the receiver of the action. The wallet, subject, received the action of finding when someone picked it up. The wallet did not do the finding. The argument was rejected. This is a passive voice. In the passive voice, the subject is the receiver of the action. The argument, subject, received a rejection. The argument did not do the rejecting. The director studied the file and gave her comments. This is an active voice. In the active voice, the subject is the doer of the action. It was the director, subject, who did the actions of studying the file and giving her comments. The committee assured me that no follow-up was necessary at the moment. This is an active voice. In the active voice, the subject is the doer of the action. It was the committee, subject, who did the assuring. The child was bitten by his friend at the daycare. This is a passive voice. In the passive voice, the subject is the receiver of the action. The child, subject, received a bite from his friend. The child did not do the biting. Here is a complete list of all the verb forms that are normally used in the passive. Passive forms are made up of an appropriate form of the verb to be, followed by the past participle, or PP, form of the verb. Verb form, construction, example. Present simple, am is are plus PP. How is this word pronounced? Present continuous, am are is being plus PP. The house is being redecorated. Present perfect simple, has, have been plus PP. He's just been sacked. Past simple, was, were plus PP. All his credit cards were stolen last week. Past continuous, was, were being plus PP. He was being treated for depression when he won the lottery. Past perfect simple. Has been plus PP. The vegetables had been cooked for far too long, but we had to eat them. Future simple. Will be plus PP. The house contents will be auctioned a week on Saturday. Future perfect simple. Will have been plus PP. There's no point in hurrying, it will all have been eaten by now. Infinitive. To be plus PP. Exams have to be taken almost every year you're at school. Do you know who is going to be invited? It is possible to form the passive with other verb forms, such as the perfect continuous ones. Example, the factory has been being built for 10 years. But usually, it is better to avoid these forms because of their complicated and inelegant structure. Note that it is only transitive verbs that can have passive forms. Intransitive verbs, like cry, die, arrive, disappear, wait, which often describe physical behavior, cannot be used in the passive voice. They have no objects, so there is nothing to become the subject of a passive sentence. Great job today, Abba-mama! I am very proud of you. Keep practicing, because the more you do it, the better you'll be. Thank you for all of your hard work.